Wife's payback on husband for cheating with his cousin. Lena Calloway had always been the family's pride and paradox. Born into a life of privilege, she enjoyed every imaginable advantage. From excelling in her studies to mastering the art of charm, Lena knew how to command attention. Her charisma was magnetic, a quality she used to propel her career as a sought-after event planner. Despite her successes and a seemingly charmed life, Lena harbored a deep, unshakable void. Her life on the surface was brimming with achievements, but she constantly chased excitement and validation, often in ways that risked her reputation and relationships. Her romantic escapades were a revolving door of intense yet fleeting affairs, each leaving a bittersweet trail of memories and fractured bonds behind. Her family, although impressed by her career, often found Lena to be a challenging presence, someone whose dramatic flair could both captivate and exhaust. As she neared her mid-30s, Lena felt society's silent pressure to grow up and settle down. But the idea of stability and long-term commitment was daunting, even stifling to her. Instead, she found herself gravitating toward ever riskier thrills, as if daring herself to feel something beyond the mundane. The upcoming family reunion represented both an opportunity for reconnection and a chance to indulge her most reckless impulses under the guise of familial celebration. On the other side of the family, there were Sam and Nora Calloway, who from a distance seemed like the epitome of marital bliss. College sweethearts who built a life together, Sam worked remotely for an influential consulting firm, while Nora dedicated herself to teaching at a nearby elementary school. But beneath their picture-perfect life, fault lines had begun to show. Ambitious and energetic, Sam felt constrained by the quiet rhythms of their small town. He longed for the pace and pulse of city life and the excitement of high-stakes negotiations. Nora, in contrast, was content with the predictability and calm of their lives. She struggled to understand his yearning for change, viewing his dissatisfaction as a personal rebuke to the life they'd built together. Once complementary, their contrasting temperaments had turned into a source of friction, each unintentionally widening the distance between them. While Sam sought variety and the thrill of new experiences, Nora valued tradition and consistency. They were devoted to each other, yet an unspoken tension simmered below the surface. Children had been a lingering topic of contention between them. Nora dreamed of starting a family, while Sam had repeatedly postponed the idea, citing career aspirations and practical concern. This unresolved issue hung over their marriage like a storm cloud, building resentment and a sense of unspoken regret between them. As the family gathered for the reunion, both Lena and Sam grappled with their own restless hearts, each confronting the widening chasms in their lives, one in search of thrills, the other of fulfillment. The Calloway family reunions were famous among relatives, a blend of grand celebration and quiet rivalry, with family members traveling from every corner of the country to gather under one roof. Each reunion brought a mix of heartfelt embraces and hidden tensions, with old conflicts resurfacing and new alliances taking shape. At the center of it all was Thomas Calloway, the family's formidable patriarch and a self-made multimillionaire. He ruled the family with a blend of warmth and unwavering expectations, leaving his children and grandchildren constantly striving to win his favor. Their achievements and mistakes were measured carefully, often with a weight that lingered long after the gatherings ended. These reunions had seen their share of scandals and surprises. There was the year Lena announced her whirlwind engagement, only to break it off weeks later, much to the family's shock. Another memorable summer was when Sam's younger brother, Joel, declared he was abandoning his corporate role in the family business to pursue a career as a sculptor. Every reunion seemed to add another layer to the family lore, fueling whispers and nods of approval or disapproval that would carry on long after. For Nora, these gatherings were both thrilling and intimidating. The Callaways' wealth and unmistakable air of entitlement often made her feel like an outsider, and she struggled to find her footing amidst their bold personalities and high-stakes conversations. Sam, on the other hand, thrived in these reunions, effortlessly slipping into his role as the affable, successful son, a role he had long mastered. This year's reunion, however, promised to be anything but simple. A perfect storm was brewing, with each family member bringing their own unspoken desires, unresolved issues, and brewing plans to the table. The Calloway estate buzzed with activity as relatives arrived, filling the spacious property with a parade of luxury vehicles, laughter, and lively chatter. Relatives unloaded trunks filled with gifts, overstuffed bags, and bottles of fine wine, the driveway lined with sleek cars that spoke to the family's affluence. The air was rich with the sound of old friends reuniting, children's laughter, and the occasional spat between long-separated cousins. True to form, Lena made a grand entrance, arriving at sunset in her stylish convertible just as the gathering hit its peak. She stepped out in a fitted designer dress, the golden light casting a glow around her. Eyes turned as she moved through the crowd with a practiced grace, dispensing air kisses and greetings that hinted at a well-rehearsed charm. Across the lawn, Sam was engaged in deep conversation with his father and a few colleagues, all discussing the latest stock trends. When he saw Lena step into the crowd, he felt an undeniable rush of excitement, mingled with a hint of anxiety. With a quick apology, he excused himself from the group and made his way toward her, his mind racing with memories and the anticipation of what Lena's presence might mean for the evening ahead. Their eyes met across the crowded lawn, a flicker of recognition and a spark of something more simmering between them. Nora observed the exchange from a distance, her fingers gripping her glass of red wine a little too tightly. She had always been cautious around Lena, sensing in her a boldness and connection with Sam that Nora felt she could never replicate. As she watched them talk, Lena's melodic laughter rang out, mingling with Sam's unwavering attention, and Nora felt an uneasy knot form in her stomach. The evening moved forward, with family members reuniting, sharing updates, and inevitably drawing comparisons of who had achieved what in the past year. Thomas Calloway, ever the center of attention, held court as he shared tales of his early business ventures with wide-eyed younger relatives. As twilight settled, string lights and lanterns were lit, bathing the garden in a soft amber glow. Sam found himself drawn to Lena time and again, enchanted by her energy and the way her presence seemed to make everything around them brighter and more captivating. They traded old family stories, shared inside jokes, and occasionally touched, a hand brushing an arm here, a playful elbow there. Meanwhile, Nora, feeling more like an outsider with each passing moment, attempted to join conversations with other family members, but her thoughts repeatedly returned to Sam and Lena. She noticed the lingering eye contact, the way they leaned subtly toward one another, the hushed tones of their voices. Each small interaction deepened the worry simmering inside her. As the night wore on, the faint but undeniable seed of attraction between Sam and Lena took root. What began as familial fondness was quickly transforming into something deeper, something electric and perilous. Neither fully grasped the implications yet, but their shared glances and touches were leading them down a path that would spiral into intense desire, betrayal, and ultimately, Sam knew his actions were crossing a line, yet the allure of the forbidden made each rendezvous all the more exhilarating. As the days grew shorter and summer drifted into autumn, their encounters became both more frequent and more brazen. They developed an intricate system of hidden signals disguised as innocuous messages and obscure social media posts that only the two of them understood. For Lena, the affair was a game, a thrilling adventure that allowed her to defy convention and feed her desire to feel irresistible. The risk of being caught only heightened her enjoyment, and she basked in the thrill of something that felt utterly out of bounds. Sam, despite his growing guilt, found himself helplessly captivated by Lena's energy. With her, he felt alive in a way he hadn't in years. The monotony of his routine faded away under the intensity of their connection. What began as a mutual attraction soon deepened into a far more complex bond. Sam and Lena saw each other as kindred spirits, discovering shared aspirations, fears, and dreams they'd long kept to themselves. Late-night conversations became a cherished ritual. Sam would slip out of bed quietly, careful not to disturb Nora, and disappear into Lena's world over whispered phone calls that stretched into the early morning. Lena, usually so cautious about showing vulnerability, found herself confiding in Sam, opening up in ways that both excited and unsettled her. She spoke of her insecurities, her fear of aging, her struggle to find a lasting relationship, and the complicated relationship she had with her parents. Sam listened patiently without judgment, offering understanding and reassurance in a way she had rarely experienced. In turn, these conversations sparked something within Sam, awakening parts of himself he'd let slip away over the years. He rediscovered his love for photography, a passion he had abandoned long ago. Lena encouraged him to embrace it, even surprising him with a high-end camera for his birthday, a gesture that left him both touched and conflicted. As their emotional bond grew, so did the danger. They became less careful, more willing to take risks, allowing their desire to cloud their judgment. Sam began fabricating business trips, using them as excuses to spend stolen weekends with Lena, while Nora remained oblivious, assuming he was away at industry conferences. Their secret world expanded, filling with shared memories, stolen glances, and a mounting tension that left them both craving more. The guilt gnawed at Sam, but the thought of ending things with Lena felt unbearable. He found himself walking a precarious line, torn between his loyalty to Nora and his deepening feelings for Lena. Unaware of the storm brewing around him, he didn't realize that his carefully crafted double life was about to unravel. As the crisp days of autumn set in, Nora couldn't shake the sense that something was wrong. Sam's sudden increase in business trips, his distracted demeanor at home, and the way he clung to his phone all hinted at a shift in their relationship. Initially, she brushed it off as work stress, but as the weeks passed, her unease only grew. Sam's behavior became more erratic. He oscillated between being distant and overly attentive, as if he were compensating for some hidden misstep. Late-night phone calls became routine, with Sam stepping out to take them in the hallway or his study. When Nora inquired about these calls, his explanations were vague and evasive, fueling her growing suspicion. The tipping point arrived during a dinner with friends. Sam's phone vibrated on the table, and in a quick glance, Nora caught a glimpse of Lena's name on the screen before he hurriedly slid the phone back into his pocket. The panic in his eyes confirmed what she had been dreading. Determined to uncover the truth, Nora began tracking Sam's behavior more closely. She noted the times he left for calls, the duration of his supposed trips, and even the mileage on his car. Each piece of information added weight to her fear that Sam was having an affair. Family gatherings, once a source of joy, became a minefield of tension for her. She watched Sam and Lena carefully, noting the fleeting glances, the quiet conversations, and how they always seemed to gravitate toward each other. Other family members began noticing the change in atmosphere as well, sparking hushed gossip and exchanged glances. Lena, for her part, seemed to thrive on the danger. She grew bolder, almost as if daring Nora to confront them. At a cousin's wedding, Lena cornered Sam for an extended conversation, her hand lingering on his arm as her laughter rang out across the room. Nora watched in silent heartbreak as Sam leaned in, his expression one of genuine delight, mirroring Lena's enthusiasm. The pieces were falling into place, and Nora's heart grew heavier with each moment she observed. What had once been mere suspicion was rapidly solidifying into an undeniable, painful reality. As winter crept in, the atmosphere in the Calloway household grew colder by the day. Nora's attempts to talk with Sam about her suspicions were met with anger and defensiveness, sparking heated arguments that would end in long, tense silences. The love and trust that had once been the bedrock of their marriage seemed to disintegrate, replaced by growing resentment and mistrust. Nora knew she needed concrete proof before confronting Sam, though the thought of invading his privacy pained her. Still, the gnawing need to know the truth pushed her forward. With a heavy heart, she made a choice that would set off a cascade of events she could never reverse. One cold December night, while Sam was in the shower, Nora seized her chance. With shaking hands, she picked up his phone, heart racing as she tried to guess the passcode. She tried their wedding date, his childhood pet's name. Nothing worked. Each failed attempt brought a mix of frustration and relief. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe there was a simple explanation for Sam's behavior. But just as she was about to abandon her search, a notification popped up. It was from Lena. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. I'll be wearing that dress you love." The message shattered any lingering hope Nora had. The wave of nausea that followed nearly overwhelmed her, snapping her back to reality as the sound of the shower stopped. She quickly placed the phone back where it had been, struggling to mask the shock and devastation on her face as Sam walked back into the room, a towel slung around his waist. Their eyes met, and a silent understanding passed between them, heavy with unspoken truth. Unable to confront Sam directly, Nora made a different decision. The following day, determined to face the woman who had stolen her husband's affection, she found her way to Lena's apartment. When Lena opened the door, she seemed taken aback, and the tension between them was immediate. Nora wasted no time confronting Lena about her affair with Sam. At first, Lena attempted to deny everything, but as Nora revealed that she'd seen the incriminating texts, Lena's attitude shifted. Backed into a corner, she abandoned any pretense, her defensiveness melting into defiance. She confessed to the affair and went a step further, claiming that she brought Sam happiness in a way Nora never could. The words cut deep, and Nora, stung by Lena's cruelty, lashed back, accusing her of recklessly destroying their family for her own selfish thrill. Lena fired back, accusing Nora of smothering Sam in a monotonous life, chaining him to small-town routines that stifled his ambitions. Bitter words and accusations flew between them. each woman insisting that she understood what was best for Sam. As their argument intensified, their anger dug up buried insecurities and complicated feelings about love, betrayal, and loss. Neither woman seemed willing to relent, each more resolute than the other. In the heat of the argument, neither noticed Lena's purse on the floor or the small pistol concealed within, a weapon she kept for self-defense. This oversight would prove a tragic turning point. Their confrontation had reached a boiling point, and the room was thick with tension. Nora, usually measured and composed, felt something snap as Lena taunted her with details about Sam's preferences. Her gaze fell to Lena's purse, where she had earlier caught sight of the gun. In a surge of raw emotion, Nora lunged for it. Lena, realizing her intention, tried to stop her, and the two women grappled, desperation driving their struggle. The gun slipped from the bag and ended up in Nora's trembling hands. Lena froze, her eyes wide with fear as time seemed to stand still. Both women locked in a moment of suspended horror. What happened next would be the subject of endless speculation and debate. The gunshot that followed shattered the silence, echoing through the small apartment. Lena staggered back, her hand pressing instinctively to her chest, which was quickly stained red. She sank to the floor, gasping as her life ebbed away. Nora stood, paralyzed, watching in horror as the reality of her actions sank in. The gun dropped from her limp hand and she collapsed to her knees beside Lena's body. The enormity of what had happened hit her in waves, and as the sounds of approaching sirens grew louder, she understood there was no undoing what she had done. Within minutes, police officers arrived at the scene, finding Nora kneeling in shock beside Lena's lifeless body. Detective Mike Hanover, a seasoned investigator with 2 decades of experience, led the charge. He was no stranger to crimes of passion, but even he sensed that this case would be far more complex than most. Detective Hanover couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was at play. From the moment he reviewed the initial evidence, the case seemed anything but straightforward. At the station, Nora's statement came out in fragmented bursts of emotion. She swung between chilling composure and outbursts of sobs, repeating, "I didn't mean to. It was an accident." Hanover listened carefully, noting each detail as he pieced together the tragic series of events. As he uncovered the affair, he sensed the case was far more than a heated confrontation gone awry. News of Lena's death and Nora's arrest tore through the sprawling Van Allen family. When Sam heard, he was struck with disbelief, reeling from the double shock. His affair with Lena was now public, and his wife stood accused of murder. His father, Edmund Van Allen, the family's powerful patriarch, immediately retained a top defense attorney for Nora, committed to shielding the family's reputation. While Edmund maintained a strong, unflinching front in public, privately he was furious over the scandal's toll on the family legacy. Relatives reacted with a range of emotions, from sorrow to shock and even morbid curiosity. Some extended their condolences to Sam, rallying around him, while others kept their distance, unwilling to be dragged into the drama. Divisions quickly emerged among the family, with some sympathizing with Nora and others deeply disturbed by her actions. The tragic incident fractured long-standing family bonds, bringing to light old grievances and rivalries that had simmered under the surface for years. As the Van Allens struggled to come to terms with the fallout, it became clear that their family dynamics would never be the same. Hanover launched himself into the investigation, determined to untangle every hidden thread. He interviewed everyone in Nora and Lena's social circles, slowly piecing together the web of their lives, evident in credit card receipts, hotel bookings, and late-night phone calls. The affair between Lena and Sam quickly came into focus, transforming Sam's supposedly business trips into something far more. Lena had long been known for testing boundaries and stirring up trouble. Several family members recounted stories of her bold flirtations, even with men who were spoken for, though few believed she'd crossed the line with her own cousin. Nora's background, in contrast, painted a picture of a woman who had always struggled to feel at home within the affluent, lively Van Allen family. Friends described her as quiet and introverted, making her sudden eruption of violence all the more jarring. In recent months, some close to her had noted increased signs of anxiety and emotional turmoil, though no one imagined it would lead to such an outcome. The firearm at the center of the tragedy added further complexity to the investigation. Registered to Lena, the gun had been purchased only a few months prior. Close friends mentioned that Lena had become increasingly worried about her safety after a stalking scare earlier in the year, which explained her recent precautionary measures. However, the presence of the weapon in her home now cast a shadow over the events leading to her death. As the investigation proceeded, the case captured the public's fascination. The blend of wealth, infidelity, and violence created a media frenzy. with journalists crowding the Van Allen estate and courthouse eager for any new details. Detective Hanover, however, focused on unraveling the truth, knowing all too well how cases like these often concealed hidden motives. Even as he readied his findings for the district attorney, he couldn't shake the feeling that more lay beneath the surface than a straightforward crime of passion. In court, the district attorney argued for first-degree murder, portraying Nora as a woman driven by jealousy and betrayal. The evidence was compelling. The incriminating text message Nora had seen, the footage of the defense team's strategy was clear. They aimed to show that in the heat of the argument, words could have been misheard and actions could have been misinterpreted. They called in their own ballistics expert, who presented a theory that the angle of the shot could indicate a struggle over the gun rather than a premeditated act. However, the turning point of the trial came when Nora herself took the stand. Her voice was soft yet steady as she described the months of unease, the growing suspicions that had shadowed her marriage, and the explosive confrontation with Lena. Nora's sincerity and palpable regret seemed to strike a chord with many of the jurors. She spoke with raw emotion as she explained, "I never wanted any of this to happen." Her voice trembling, "I just wanted the truth. I just wanted to know where my life was heading." The courtroom, tense with anticipation, seemed to hold its breath as she finished. It was clear that her testimony had made the outcome of the trial less predictable than anyone had anticipated. The jury deliberated for a long 3 days, a torturous wait that seemed to stretch on for eternity. When they finally returned to the courtroom, the weight of the moment was unbearable. Nora stood, her face pale but composed as the foreman slowly read the verdict. On the charge of first-degree murder, we find the defendant not guilty. On the charge of second-degree manslaughter, we find the defendant guilty. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Nora was sentenced to 6 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 4. She was also ordered to undergo therapy to address the deep emotional wounds that had led to such a tragic outcome. As Nora was escorted from the courtroom, there was a palpable sense of shock. Family members reacted in a whirlwind of emotions. Some wept openly, while others shouted vehemently about the fairness of the decision. Sam, sitting in the front row, buried his face in his hands, his guilt and grief a heavy burden that seemed to consume him entirely. Outside, the public's opinion was just as divided. Some believed the sentence was far too lenient. Others thought it was a fair compromise given the complexity of the situation. The case had ignited heated debates on issues of infidelity, emotional distress, and where the line should be drawn when it came to justifiable actions in moments of extreme pain.